Alright. Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney 2 Ryunosuke's Resolve. This is Vita Fuser, our last episode. We tied Tobias Gregson's murder, or at least Tobias Gregson was in Judge Jigoku's cabin. And we had a bunch of preparations for this entire quest. We also found out that the list of names we unearthed in the last game was very much a hit list. A list of victims and a list of assassins. Of course, as a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice. Oh, really? The events in the cabin. I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an ippon through. He couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. He has nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London. Iponsu. I don't even know how to pronounce that last one. And I try to think of myself as someone who can fairly accurately pronounce Japanese pronunciations. A common jujitsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. So, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves the victim's murder took place in there. I wouldn't say that. Ah! Oof. I've no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell. Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord. But if this testimony holds, Judge Jigoku will be deemed to have had no involvement in the case. Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious time here on cross-examination. Ow! Sorry, my lord, the defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. The same could be said in reverse. In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. Alrighty. Okay. But there's no evidence that proved the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, Stripling. What? If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have gotten back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain at that same spot. It's a devil of a thing. Well, then, obviously the culprit must have moved the body. How exactly? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but all passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels. But judges aren't. And I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage. If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. there would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. Unless you happened to be a judge. We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them, which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose the body at the sea. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you can understand. Me no have body. I think I ought to alter my testimony. With your consent, of course, my lord. I have no objection. State your amended testimony now. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. I don't think so. Commemorative. That's not it. There it is. There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I would say the opposite is true. And what's that supposed to mean? Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is the only thing you could do. Something only you could do. What are you talking about, Ryunosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learned that when we first met you on your arrival in London. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took a lot of time. I must say I'm very envious of you, your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? I knew you were jealous. I presume you recall this, Judge Jigoku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside. Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting... I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with new arrivals from Japan in a hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Jigoku's trunk. Order! Order! Order in the court! I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple. Wouldn't it, Judge Jigoku? But inside his trunk? How horrifying! And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street. Taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense! Dr. Gori, the coroner examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages. And the SS Grouse is no exception. We found the hole and we filled it in. Professor Mikatoga told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Jigoku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asoki and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already. Judge Jigoku, please stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical. The actual scene of the crime? The prosecution's stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. And is the accused, Berk von Zieks, shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? Quite simply, because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you'd better explain yourself to the court, don't you? The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot on the scene at Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts the claim. Gregson's photograph. Photograph of the victim. This'll probably be it. A photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed. Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question his body would have been curled up in a ball like that, yeah. That kind of posture would only be if he was hauled out of and dropped to the floor of something. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. You could easily have adopted that fetal position through the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Jigoku, but it's your logic that's flawed. What? According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now. You're suggesting. The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out on the floor, from the inside of a large travel trunk. No! You're quite right. The shape of the body. It's exactly as if it's been kept in a confined space. Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible it will contain traces of traces of the victim's blood. Ah! Present my trunk. I refuse. What? On what grounds? I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I should not have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's base accusations. In other words, Judge Jigoku, there is blood in your trunk. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to... At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are witness to in a trial to Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be. You will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Order! Order in the court! Well, Mr. Jigoku, what's it to be? You can't be serious. You did it? Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Sogi? What? Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense. What? You, dear God! Outrageous! It was you! You admit to Inspector Gregson's No! I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left into my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it in the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it elsewhere. You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, who did kill him? As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life. That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Sogi. You! I never thought you'd stoop to this, Sechiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth, Prosecutor Kazuma Asogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin you could pin the crime on me, did you? Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. Yes, on an assassination mission, no less. You wouldn't! So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more. I don't believe this. Counsel for the defense. What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the witness's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Asogi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku, or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well, the defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. The idea the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Sogi is out. No, it can't be that way. No, it's impossible. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claim that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. It is, no question. Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Asogi to commit the crime. What? The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. Yes. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that the allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Sogi's involvement?
Take that!
This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. It's conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Jigoku, the moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. What? Why? On the night in question, as always, a crewman sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could fire a shot inside the cabin. Absolutely, because it's inconceivable the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate. So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. And that narrows it down to the 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated on the itinerary. Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far. Yes. But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Now, clearly the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. Prosecutor Sogi stated in yesterday's proceedings, "I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night on a boarding house in the town, and returned to England the following morning." Which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof that Kazuma Sogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Jeez, your statement's full of holes. No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all. I reject your reality and substitute my own. What do you mean? The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back in. No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma? As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof. No! There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer, as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it? Seshiro Jigoku. It was that damn trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began. Oh boy, looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Oh wow. It's over. My life is over. Wow, that one hurt. That one hurt. A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Asogi. But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement. Because I was already on my way to Britain at that time, in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself. Personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that. The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume. That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain. So I enlisted the help of my British counterpart. Sorry about that. I had to sort something out accidentally. Ran into my door. Ouch. Not fun. Not fun at all. Okay, so where was I? I made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. What? The Reaper? But there's only one person who could have done that. The mastermind of the entire operation. The Reaper himself. So, that means that the assassin exchange was planned by the Reaper. I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France, and his own death. How awful. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for a long time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time waiting. For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock, I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came around and went for me in a reckless move. Bang! I'd received the British-issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that. So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street. The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side. That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse into the refrigeration room. And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police. I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock in that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. I decided that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit. So I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk. That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then. Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers. Miss Venus, of course. I conceived of the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case. So I put that on. Although I suspect it drew more attention to myself than I would have thought otherwise. The hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation, only arrived at the room in around 4:45. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap. Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder. What was that? I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips. I didn't notice it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back in his pocket the following morning, but... oh well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish. Anyway, that's everything. All the sordid details of what I did. And usually when you accuse the judge, all you get is a heavy penalty that nearly makes it a game over. I've heard enough. We will hear what he has to say next time.